right, happy Saturday, everyone. I think this is what, the 5th class we've done like this, so time is going by. All right, go ahead and sit in Swastikasana. I'm on 2 blankets, but I actually feel like today I'm wanting a little bit more height so I can get a little bit more release in the groin. So I'm folding one of my blankets in half again and sitting up on that height. And when I did that, I felt automatically I just got a little bit of release in the inner groin. And I automatically also felt a lift coming up into my chest, which seems really great for just being willing to take a little bit of extra height. So you might experiment with that yourself, just depending on the day or depending on what's going on. You may need a different sort of prop. But take your hands and turn the soles of the feet up toward the ceiling and use your thumbs and push down on that big toe base joint so you really get the tops of the feet to open. And move your calf flesh up toward the ceiling also. Then do that technique we've been working on where you squeeze the top thigh with your hands. And again, what you're trying to do is move the skin to the flesh to the bone. And it's actually the bone you're trying to turn into a little bit more external rotation. You can work down your leg, even down toward the knee if that feels good to you. But it's a pretty strong squeeze, right? And basically what you're doing with your hands is what your outer hip muscles should also be doing, right? Eventually. That we really want to, for everyone, but particularly if you have issues in your hips, what we are after is that instruction that because Iyengar gives in Tadasana to compact the hips. Right? What that means is all the outer muscles around the outer hips and the buttocks should be firm. And when they're firm, it is easier to feel a release coming into the inner groin. So our inner groin a lot of times is tight because our outer hips are too lax. Right? And so the inner groin says, oh, I better do extra work because the outer hips aren't really doing their share of work. And so you can feel that musculature of the outer hips in a lot of ways, but one of them is by this work of the feet. So if you press the feet down and energetically lift the ankles up, you really should feel something happening in your outer hips. And it may just take you a while to experience the effect of that work, but even if you can just imagine, okay, the outer hips are getting more firm. Sometimes even what I do is when they really are feeling dull is you see how I'm really actually poking myself in my outer hips, and then there's usually like a kind of response there. Okay. So that's the first thing that you're kind of looking for with that work of the feet. But the second thing that happens is you also will feel a lift come into your chest. And if you don't feel those 2 things, you're not like a bad person or anything. But it may just mean you really do need to push down and try to lift the ankles a little bit harder. I mean, do it so much that you really do feel those 2 responses. Or at least imagine those responses. Make the inquiry about whether that's happening in your body. And then that's yoga, right? Looking at that experience or that chain of cause and effect. Right? Then keeping your outer hips firm, lengthen up through your side ribs. Make yourself as tall as you can from the pelvis, through the waist, through each individual rib, all the way up into the armpits, make yourself tall. Then roll your shoulder bones back, bring your shoulder blades closer together on your back, away from your neck and into the center of the body so that the chest opens more. And that into the center of the body is like a basic movement inward, but there's also a little bit more subtle work. If you can imagine your bottom shoulder blades and almost like an arrow is coming up to the center of the top chest, and then 2 other arrows were moving out to the outer edges of your collarbones. Okay? So when you bring those shoulder blades in, it's an inward lift, but also an upward lift that supports the lift and opening of the chest. And keeping your chest well lifted and broad, close your eyes and fold your palms together to your heart. If you're like me and you're wearing glasses, it's nice to take the glasses off at the beginning of class when we do the Om and working with the breath. Partly it helps the eyes relax and draw inward. but it's also a symbolic gesture that what we're really looking at or looking for in the practice of yoga is something inside of ourselves. And we don't need glasses to make that inward journey. As you inhale, make yourself taller from the tailbone all the way up through the top of the head. Keep that height, and as you exhale, move the prana or the energy of the breath outward toward your side ribs and armpits. Inhale, make yourself tall. Keep that height. Exhale, make yourself broad. Inhale, extend yourself. Exhale, expand yourself. Use the breath to create an additional sense of inner spaciousness. That sense of inner spaciousness, you really should feel some upliftment from within. Almost like you've cleaned your house and it's a little bit more sparkly and a little bit more inviting to move into. And so that inner lift that we're creating with the inhalation acts like a magnet for the mind. So now turn your awareness more to the exhalation and follow the exhalation with your mind to that inner spaciousness that you've created with the breath. That exhalation should have a calming and a soothing effect on the brain. So we can begin class from a more sattvic place. And from that still place within, let's chant 3 Oms together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keeping your chest well lifted and broad, bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. You can put your glasses back on. And then stretch your legs out into Dandasana. And if you have your brick handy, you can put your brick between your feet for Dandasana. If you don't, you can imagine you have a brick, or you can just keep your big toes together. So another way of working with the feet, so you feel that firmness come into the outer hips, is to strongly press your big toes into the brick, and then move your other toes away from the brick. As I'm observing my own toes, I realize that there's a tuft of golden retriever fur that just floated by my toe, so I just removed that. But the more you push the brick with your big toes and spread your other toes away from your big toes, you really should feel your quadriceps lift and engage, your inner thighs engage, and you should again feel that firmness coming into the outer hips. So maintain those 2 actions of the feet as you feel that lift also coming up into the chest. And you can take your brick out of the way and then bring your opposite leg in first. Back into Swastikasana. Those 2 poses are also nice to alternate because you've got the external rotation of the Swastikasana work. And in Dandasana, the femur bones are more in internal rotation, or let's say neutral, actually. All right, and then push the tops of the thighs down again and energetically lift those ankles up. And observe, do you feel firmness coming into the outer hips and a lift coming into the chest? And take your hands, put your hands on your rib cage and lift your rib cage up. And as you do that, you should feel your abdomen draw in and up a little bit. And take your hands and put your hands right in the thumbs in the center of the armpits and lift the armpits up, and you'll feel yourself get taller. Then move your thumbs to the back of the armpits and move from the back of the armpit to the front of the armpit, and you should feel your trapezius muscles release down also. And then just release your hands down and just sit quietly for a couple of moments. And observing the breath and observing the increased vitality that's just come from doing a couple of new poses. Not new poses, old poses. But really the poses are kind of new every day because everything's always changing. And so even though you're doing the same poses, there should be a new inquiry into the poses and their work each day. All right, and try the Dandasana with the brick again. So put the brick between your feet if you have it. Again, you don't have to have a fancy yoga brick. You could have a book. You could use a box, like something that's coming, you know, that you might have ordered from Amazon that comes in one of those like boxes. You could tape up that box and it would put like some stuff in it, and that would work as a brick too. Right? It's also just not hard to buy a brick. Comes in handy. All right, and then just observe, is that big toe action and the big toe spreading and the other toe spreading away? Do that so much that something happens in your quadriceps. You know, and if nothing is happening, push more. Like really do it. So push those big toes into the brick so much that you feel those quadriceps lift, you feel the inner thighs lift, and you feel your outer hips draw in. And that's really what your leg muscles more or less should be doing all the time. Right? I mean, there are a few exceptions, but in general, you want that muscular engagement of the legs. Okay, Karen had some questions about hips, which is why I'm kind of on that track right now. And I myself have from time to time issues with my outer hips. One nice thing about the COVID crisis is I haven't been spending quite as much time in the car, so I can tell a difference here. But when my hips hurt, sometimes I feel like a lot of tightness right on the inside of the pelvic region. And one thing that helps with maybe like a soreness in the outer hip. One thing that really does help me a lot is to use foam rollers. So foam rolling isn't really part of the Iyengar yoga system, but it's very helpful. But what is a really helpful thing that a lot of people find nice to do is to take a strap, and you have to stand first in Tadasana. And you're going to put the strap, you want to feel where your outer femur bones are. And it's a little lower than you think. And put the strap on, and you're going to make it really, really tight. And then you will have this, if you don't have one, it's okay. But basically you can just imagine that you're doing it. And if you have the strap, also you have this tail, and you don't want to trip on the tail, so you want to avoid future strap suffering. And I'm closing it in. But then what you'll feel when you step your feet out wide for Trikonasana, just taking a look at y'all over here, you want to make it as tight as you can. Right? Yeah. And what it should feel like when you're in this Utthita Hasta Padasana, it basically should move your outer hips in a little bit more. Okay? So you should feel some firmness and some vitality there. And it's really almost impossible to make the strap too tight. Okay? You really want it to be rather tight. So you'll feel that's actually helping you get what Mr. Iyengar calls compacting the hips. And so, you know, when my hips are bothering me, I actually wear this all the time. Like just walking around the house, I have it on. You know. I might wear it in the car, okay, when my hips are bothering me, and it really does help. Reminds me to get these outer hips firm, and you may feel as you're just standing here, even just in Utthita Hasta Padasana with the strap on, that there is a lift and a soothing sensation of release of tension that comes on the inside of the pelvic region. So just be aware of that with the strap. And then we're going to go into a pose called Virabhadrasana 2. A couple other things that have just been hip related, and then we'll do the sequence that I had planned. Been going through these Puna sequences, and one is to really lift up on your front heel, which will be your right heel, lift up. And when you turn, keep your toes up first, and you'll feel that outer femur bone get a little bit more drawn in. I mean, it's not like completely sucked in, but it is more firmly, let's say, engaged, where it should be, let's say it's set a little bit better in the socket. All right, so that's Parvutthita Hasta Padasana. Then the second thing I just wanted to say about the hips is in Virabhadrasana 1, you can just bend your knee. I think we went over this last week. But that's just an action of the front leg bending. If you actually take your awareness to the other side where the strap is and think about bending your knee from this point, it's a lot softer and it's a more integrated action. So anytime you're working like in Parsvakonasana or Vira 1, if you can imagine that strap, press down into the back heel, and from that strap, bend the leg. Okay. It's a lot easier on the front hip. And turn back to the center, and we'll do that on the other side. Okay, so you're gonna lift your toes up, spin on that heel. And then from this place, on the opposite side, press into your back heel, but bend your knee from here. And you can feel the difference. If you just bend the knee, what happens is there's kind of a grip that it almost puts a brake on the bending. But if you bend from here, it's much more fluid and, let's say, stable, both. All right. So those are 3 things, I guess I would just say, that those of you who have issues in the hips, you might consider. 4 things, actually, I guess I did, is that work of the feet, okay? The spreading of the toes against the brick, the push of the foot downward, that firms the hips. Second thing is you can work with this strap. Third thing is you can lift up on those balls of the feet and turn. And the 4th thing is when you bend, think about bending from the other leg, right? So those are 4 special things that you can think about to help with your hips. On the other hand, I am sitting a lot more in front of the computer, so that can be difficult too. But go ahead and then take your straps off now and come back to Tadasana. And what the strap does when you're in Tadasana, or what you should feel, is that there's actually like an imprint left of where the strap actually is. Like it's almost like you still have the strap on. And so the strap kind of trains those outer hip muscles to do a little bit more work. So I am still feeling that, and as a result, I feel more sucked in toward the midline, and I feel more of a lift coming all the way into my chest. Stretch through your ring fingers so you feel the tricep muscles, yeah, that's right. Triceps come more onto the bone. And just be in a nice firm Tadasana. It's the first pose in the book, so it's worth spending some time there. All right, so we're going to start a little bit differently than we have, and we're actually going to start off in a downward facing dog. And we'll do it both with head support and without head support. So in downward facing dog, we'll do it without head support first. Okay, so you're going to come down onto your hands and your knees. Push through the thumb and the first finger and turn your triceps so that the biceps go a little bit more toward the front of the room. Look forward. Do your shoulder blade actions, which are in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body so the chest opens. And then turn your toes under, and you're going to push back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog. Keep pressing your hands down and forward, and bring the weight of the pose back into your legs. And come up onto the balls of the feet, and as you do that, really push down through the big toes. Again, that big toe action, just observe what happens in your quadriceps. You should really get lift coming into the quadriceps. Lift your inner thighs. And you can even tip your buttocks up a little bit more than you might normally. Okay. All right, and then when you reach your heels back, don't just drop your heels to the floor, but extend your heels backward and see if you can do that from the arch of the foot. Okay, so you're lengthening that arch back to the heels, and see if that helps you get a little bit more engagement in the legs. Another interesting cue that was coming through these sequences is also move the front of your ankle back. Yeah, that worked. Yeah, I can see it working on a lot of you. All right, so that's downward facing dog with the head just hanging. Okay. All right, and then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back. and come all the way up. So I think it was Hallie who was asking about how much weight you put on the head. Okay. So downward facing, when you work with head support, the reason you want to work with head support, well, actually the classic pose of downward facing dog, if you were actually to look at it in the book, his head is actually on the floor. Okay. And once you have enough openness to get that head on the floor, it's actually a lot easier to stay in the pose for a long period of time, or a longer period of time, partly because your head is doing some of the work. But the thing is, I'm going to kind of show the wrong way to do it and then the right way to do it. So, you know, if you thought the head is supposed to be on the floor, you can kind of you can collapse, right? If you're trying to get the head on the floor, and that's not really what you're trying to do. The head actually goes to the floor because you've pulled back so much, and you've got so much work in the legs, so much work in the arms that the head just hangs. And I'm not right now warmed up enough to really get my head all the way to the floor, but it's close. All right, so that's kind of the idea when you work with the head support. You're just raising the floor a little bit. And again, the tendency people have is say, oh, that brick is there, and my head's supposed to get on the floor, so I'm just gonna put my head on the brick and just stay here. And that's not what we're supposed to do. The thing is, I think I say this most of the time I teach it, but you have to kind of forget the brick is there until you're in your best pose. Okay? So what helps me do that is to actually go into the pose with my head looking forward. Okay? So I get my arms working, I get my legs working, I push with my hands, I pull back, and I get as far into the pose as I can. My head is still looking forward, and then I just let my head hang and it hits the brick. Okay? So I'm not really pushing my head into the brick. The head and the brick just have a nice relationship, okay, of support, all right? So give that a go. And Karen was saying it's like putting a nice object down on the table. You could think of it that way. For me, the brick is truthfully a little bit more support than I need. Okay. So I have these nice pieces of shoulder stand foam that would probably be perfect. Yeah, that's good. So if you feel like the support is pushing your head up toward the ceiling, that means that you have too much support. Okay. So you may not need a whole brick. You might need to find a couple of a couple of books that are just the perfect height. And you want to support with your forehead, or you might need a little bit more. Yeah, that looks pretty good, Holly. All right. You got to keep your arms straight. There's Vicky's dog. Very cute. All right. Straighten your arms a little bit more, Holly. There, yeah, there you go. Good. All right. And walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back. And come all the way up. And go ahead and get a strap. And I want to show you kind of nifty new shoulder thing that I've been working on too. The first thing we're going to do is just our normal strap work with the trapezius muscles. If you don't have a strap, just a piece of rope would work. For this one particularly, you need to make a loop for the second one, but I guess you could just tie the rope into a loop. Dog leash would work. Many of you have dogs. Okay, so this is trapezius shoulder strap work that we've done many times before. Okay, what you do is you put the strap on your back, right around your lower rib cage, and flip the strap over so it goes onto your trapezius muscles. Then you cross the strap back behind you and pull down. This is one of my favorite things to do. this and shared Vipada Viparita Dandasana are really two things I remember from very early in my practice that said, you know, this feels so good. I just want to do yoga all the time. And this one in particular, I think I told a lot of you this story. I just like this so much that I actually kept a yoga strap in the drawer where my coffee making supplies were. And then when I was waiting for my coffee to brew in the morning, I would just be in Tadasana with my shoulder harness strap on, waiting for my coffee. And it would just release a lot of tension that had built up in my neck. And I'd say this is actually probably the first really thing I did as a daily home practice. And so I really like that, and it feels good.
Can you show it again? I can't see.
Sure. You know, I'm sorry, I'm wearing, let me show it with the white straps so you'll see it a little bit better. Okay. The white straps are a little bit short for it, but I'm going to show it anyway. So I'm wearing a black shirt, which, okay, so this is the back of my rib cage. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. And then
Yeah.
on the back of your rib cage, then I've turned around and you put the straps right on your trapezius muscle, okay, like that. And it's not crossed in front. It's just on the trapezius muscle. Then I'm turning around again so you can see. Then you want to cross the strap and back, and you pull. Okay. And what you should feel is it should feel like those thick muscles that kind of gather at the bottom of the neck on top of the back. They should feel like they're getting pulled downward away from the neck. And you should feel a release of tension in your neck, or like a kind of freedom that comes in your neck. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. I really like it. It's good. But then I learned something that I like almost better. Right? I guess I'll still show with the white strap, even though you might want a little longer strap. So for this one, you have to make a loop with the strap. And for me, the pinna straps are almost exactly the right length. Okay? And the length of my strap is kind of the length of my loop is about the length of my leg. Okay? Probably if you have a strap at home, you're more likely to have one of the thicker kind of straps that are a little bit longer. And if you're taller, you may want to make a little bit longer loop. But what you're going to do is you're going to put the loop over your head. And so the back of the loop goes the same place as the single strap did. Then you throw the loop, well, actually, you're going to move the strap up higher towards your armpit. And then you throw the loop over your head, and then you catch with your thumb or your hands the loop. You don't have to cross it underneath, and you just pull. So for me, they're both great, but this one, when I do it, it gives me a little bit more feeling. You maybe even can see that it's lifting my collarbones even more and getting broadness across the collarbones. Let me see how it's going for y'all. Yeah. You want it to be pretty tight, like it's hard almost to straighten your arms. See if you can get your arms straight. All right. Then once you have you can do the cross strap also, just this works a little bit better actually. Then step your feet out wide like you were doing at Trikonasana because you're going to get ready to do Trikonasana. If you had two belts, you can still keep your hip belt on also. But keep pulling downward on the strap with your hands as you lift your toe up and turn to the right. Then when you go into Trikonasana, hold onto the strap with just your left hand and reach out with your right hand. And you'll kind of feel that strap helping you extend your spine as you go down into the pose. And so you don't have to reach your top hand up, you're just pulling on the strap with your hand. And it helps release the neck, and you may find it's a little bit easier actually to turn the head in Trikonasana. All right, then press into your back heel and come all the way up. Come back to the center, pull down on the strap again, and feel how that releases tension in the neck, but it also really gives you this nice lift as it moves through the armpits and opening in the collarbones. And then do your second side. So you're gonna lift and turn on the heel. Now you're holding onto the strap with just your right hand as you lift your left arm all the way out to the side. Really pull on that strap. It's okay to actually use a fair bit of pressure there, and then bring your hand down to your shin. And just observe the openness in the collarbones and the freedom that comes in the neck. And then come back to the center, turn your feet back to the center, and then come and stand in Tadasana again. You can take your strap off. And just see if you can feel the effect of those two pieces of strap work. I still feel a nice reminder of my hip strap, but because we did that trapezius release and also that collarbone lifting, I feel much taller and broader in my chest region. And I feel a little bit more clarity in the front of my brain as well. Just observe whatever effect you feel for you. All right, then go ahead, if you have 2 bricks, go ahead and get 2 bricks. If you don't, it's okay. And we're gonna do a pose called Parsvottanasana. And it looks like this. You're gonna step your right foot forward and your left foot back. Line your heels up with each other, though if you're a little wobbly in balance, you can move your right foot over to the right. And then you're just gonna put your bricks down in front, on either side of your front foot. And we're gonna be in this concave stage of Parsvottanasana. Okay. So you can have your bricks pretty high, so it's easier to get that opening in the front of your chest. Then turn your bricks so that your hand, the fingertips actually point outward, like at 3 o'clock and at 9 o'clock. And feel how that takes your shoulder blades in more. And then you could even turn your bricks back to the same way, but turn your hands the opposite way. Like you're getting ready to do Adho Mukha Vrikshasana 3. And when I put my hands this way, it's a little bit difficult on the wrist sometimes, but I can really feel that it brings my shoulder blades more deeply into my back, which is beneficial. Then I can keep that work of the shoulder blades as I turn my hands back to that classic position. You keep your leg action strong, bring your hands to your hips and come up, and then stand in Tadasana, and you should feel one side may feel a little bit different than the other, which is nice because you get to do the second side. All right, so left foot forward, right foot back. Bring your hips around so they're level. Lift your quadriceps and your inner thighs. And then fold forward into the concave stage of Parsvottanasana. And think of your shoulder blade actions, shoulder blades in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body. Imagine you still had that strap loop on and your collarbones were getting that nice lift from the strap loop. Then turn your hands out on the bricks. So you have to turn the bricks and observe. For me, when I do that, I feel that top outer shoulder blades kind of moving in a little bit more toward each other. And then you can turn your hands all the way around on the bricks. And when I do that, I feel a little bit more of the middle part of the shoulder blade going in. I still feel the top part of the shoulder blade too. And then maintain that good work of the shoulder blades that you got by changing with your hands as you bring your fingertips back forward. So your shoulder blades are really nicely engaged. And to come out of the pose, make sure your leg action is strong and your outer hips are in like you still have the strap on. Place your hands on your hips and come all the way up. And then stand in Tadasana. The Parshvottanasana, Parshva is the side of the body. Right? And the Vottanasana part is a variation of Uttanasana, or standing forward bend. Okay? So it's a forward bending pose where you're stretching the sides of your body. Okay? So now we'll do that aspect of it going forward. Okay? So you're gonna bring your right foot forward and your left foot back again. I'm gonna lower my bricks 1 for this one. And then I keep my outer hips firm, but I'm gonna reach my blocks as far in front of me as I can. And even though I can touch the floor, I have my hands up on bricks because when my hands are elevated, I get more opening in the armpits, right? And more length feeling in the sides of the torso. Okay, so that's the sides of the body. Parshvottanasana. There's also a version of this where you can put your hands in Paschimma Namaskarasana and fold forward, but I don't like that one as much. Okay, all right, then walk your hands back to the concave stage of Parshvottanasana. And then come all the way up and back into Tadasana. And then we'll do the second side. All right. All right, so left foot forward, right leg back. Get your bricks. You can come into the concave stage first. Make sure your legs are strong and your hips are level. And then reach your hands way out in front of you on those bricks. And if you have yourself positioned just right on your sticky mat or your floor, sometimes you can actually get the bricks to kind of slide a little bit better. And then it's almost like the bricks will pull you even further forward. And just observe that length that comes in the whole side of the body, but I'm particularly feeling a very nice opening in the armpit region. Also, when your head is down like this, it begins that soothing sensation that a lot of times you get from that immunity sequence work. Then come back to the concave stage and then come all the way up. All right, there's another way of working which I really like, which gets even more length in the sideways. I'm gonna show it from the front because I think you'll see it better. Okay. I'm gonna put my right foot forward and my left foot back. I still have my bricks, but instead of extending straight forward, what I'm actually gonna do is extend over to the side. So I call this one Parshvottanasana. So I'm actually changing the shape of the pose so I get even more length in that left side of the body. It's gonna come automatically. And then you can push a little bit more with the right side of the body, right brick. And you should feel yourself getting longer by doing Parshvottanasana. You can go over to the side. You can play with the angle, how far you're going. For me, myself, I would say my bricks are kind of angling out at about 2 o'clock on the clock. Maybe between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock. They're not angled all the way over to 3 o'clock. Okay. I had to put a big clock in my yoga room so I could see what time it is. So I'm very able right now to say, yes, that's pretty much like 2 o'clock. All right, and then when you come back to the center, see if you can make yourself even longer by pushing the bricks outward and go back just to the straight ahead one that you were doing before. Regular Parshvottanasana with your hands on bricks. And that side action should have given you more length. Then move your bricks back to the concave stage and look forward so your shoulder blades come onto your back. And then come all the way up and stand in Tadasana again. So I'm feeling more length in both sides of my torso, which I'm also feeling more lift in the chest as a result of that. And the drawing inward of the contents of the brain. All right, do your second side. So you're going to take your left foot forward and your right foot back. In the classic pose, the heels are lined up with each other, but you can move your left foot over to the left a little bit to help with balance and to help you bring your outer hip around. Turn your back thigh from the inside out. You're gonna get your bricks, and instead of going straight forward, you're gonna angle off, let's say to 10 o'clock, and reach forward. You wanna try and keep your hips as level as you can, so you're trying to get length, more additional length coming into the sides of the body by angling the pose a little bit. When you're going off to the left, you'll automatically feel more length coming to the right side. It's just the logistics of the pose. Okay. And so go with that. You can even do that side a little bit more. And when you've got that maximal stretch in the right side, then can you add the left side so that things are a little bit more even? Good. Now, when you go back to the center, see if you can push your bricks out even more, like you're making a bigger arc or angle, and bring your hands forward again. Just let your head hang. If you have the flexibility, it may be, well, not with your hands on bricks, but you know, if your hands were on the floor, your forehead might be by your shin. That'd be fine. All right, then come back to the concave stage so you can really feel how that length actually gives you more ability to bring those shoulder blades in nicely onto the back. And press into your heels, keep your outer hips firm as you come all the way up, and then stand into Tadasana. So our grand finale pose today is going to be Parivrita Trikonasana. Okay? And we're going to go into it through Parsvottanasana, which is what we just did. Okay? So it looks like I'm trying to think. I guess you'll see it better if I do it from the side for this one. Okay. So I've got my right foot forward and my left foot back. I'm going over into Parsvottanasana as much as I can. And then I keep that ground that I gained. And you might be able to put your hand all the way onto the floor and turn and rotate. But you might also need a brick. And then you'll feel how much your rib cage comes around. You can keep your top hand on your hip. Okay? All right, so let's do Parivrita Trikonasana from Parsvottanasana. All right, so right foot forward, left foot back. Then extend your both bricks over to the right as much as you can. Then trying to keep as much length as you can, put your left hand down on the outside of your right, on the floor on the outside of your right foot. If you can, a lot of times you may find you can actually get to the floor with this way of working, but if you still need your brick, it's totally fine. Feel how that Parsva action actually brings your left ribs around a little bit more. Good. And then if you can, reach your top hand up, go ahead and do so. If it bothers your shoulders, you don't need to do so. All right, good. And then press into your back left heel and come all the way up. And then we'll do the other side. You're going to step your left foot forward and your right foot back. Reach your bricks way over to the left. Turn around. Let's see a little bit there. And then you've got this maximal extension, and then you're just going to slide your right hand down to the outside of your left foot, and then turn and rotate. You want to try and bring your arm around so much that actually your arm that's on the floor on the brick is almost like it was doing handstand. Okay? A lot of times we get the hand down, but we don't bring the whole shoulder along. But see if you can actually turn so much that your arm is actually kind of vertical. It's a lot more work. I never really tried to do that before until they were teaching in one of the tuna sequences. Like, oh, okay. Always something new to learn. All right, and then come out of the pose by pushing into your back heel and reach yourself all the way up and come all the way up and just stand in Tadasana. And feel the effect of that Parivrita work on your Tadasana. So I'm feeling my back rib cage. I'm a lot more aware of it. it's not even just my shoulder blades are more in, but the rib cage kind of underneath and below the shoulder blades, I feel like that's gotten a lot more energy. And now I feel like my whole back body is actually supporting the lift and the opening of the chest. And all that's really nice. Okay, so here we go for the immunity sequence part of class. And Hallie was mentioning she's not sure it's doing anything for her immune system yet, but it does help with the mental state. And I completely agree with that. I mean, it's largely an inversion practice, and inversions are, I would say, the most important part of yoga in terms of altering your mental and your emotional states. Okay. But inversions, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stand on your head, but the idea is to get the head below the heart. Okay. So the first one is in the sequence is Uttanasana with head support. Okay. And the support of the head for Uttanasana is you just put the block on the very crown of the head. If you do happen to have 3 bricks or 3 brick-like things, okay, you can also put your head down and raise your hands up on bricks. Okay. And what that does for you is it helps you get more broadness across the collarbones. So your hands are kind of hanging down toward the floor. It helps you get more lift in your shoulders. Okay. I actually had my head on the hard brick, which was maybe a little bit too hard, okay, but it did actually kind of feel nice. And so I like to put my head more on the softer foam brick. But then my hand bricks don't match, and I know that would bother Vicky. Okay. So this is Uttanasana. And I mean, how I feel this, I mean, in terms of the weight on my head is really just against the brick. I'm not scrunching the brick with my head. I'm just letting it be there, and I'm working to lift the shoulders away from the neck. The other thing I really just think about is you have the ability to really see your quadriceps, so it's a nice place to test how engaged your quadricep muscles are. So that's Uttanasana. And it's just a very soothing pose, particularly with the head support. You know, the mental state also in terms of, you know, when we're under a lot of stress, that affects our immune system, right? I mean, how many times does it just happen just in regular pre-pandemic days that you're more likely to just catch a cold or feel allergy stress when you're just kind of stressed out in general in life. So, you know, that I think that's part of the work of it. It's not like so much like this sequence is like taking some vitamin C and zinc and work that way. It's more that it gives your body and mind a chance to work together and feel a little less stressed. All right, then place your hands on your hips, roll your shoulder bones back, and come all the way up. And observe the effect like we did in the standing poses. Well, that's still a standing pose, but it's a forward bend. All right, do you feel, what does that Uttanasana give your Tadasana? For me, I feel a little bit of a release in the sinuses. Today, I'm also feeling kind of the back of my lower eye has got a nice little release from that. Okay, so head supported downward facing dog again is the second pose. And in the head supported downward facing dog again, where you're really wanting to put the support is right at the forehead. Okay. And like I said at the beginning, when we did this at the beginning of class, for me, the best thing to do to get the right support, and I'm actually going to use my correct support. For me, the shoulder stand foam is about the best for support. But you have to keep your head out of the game at first. Work your shoulder blades really well. We've been doing that all class. So in, away from the neck, and into the center of the body. And keep those shoulder blades engaged as you straighten your arms, push back, straighten your legs. And when you're really as far back in downward facing dog as you feel like you can get, then just hang your head
And the forehead should come in contact with whatever your support is. This also is really helping my sinuses release. Yeah, good. Yeah, that looks good. Those of you I can see, it looks good. And you may feel when your head is supported, I mean, you still have to work your arms and your legs, but it's just a little bit easier to stay in the downward facing dog. You feel that your armpits are open like we were working in the Parsvotanasanas, and the Parsvotanasanas. So you really should feel a lot of nice opening in your armpits from the sequence we did today. In both of those poses, you know, you can work on, 2 to 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes even over time. All right, and then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands in your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back and come all the way up. All right. The next pose in the immunity sequence is Prasarada Padottanasana, which means extended wide apart foot pose. If your head doesn't go to the floor, you just raise the floor. And, you know, I think since we did those Parsvos today, we'll actually add in Parsva Prasarada Padottanasana. So even if your head does go to the floor, you'll still need your 2 bricks. Because what we're going to do is come into Prasarada Padottanasana, which feels wonderful. But then, well, actually, you don't need your bricks. You can just use your hands or you can use your bricks, but you're going to go to the right side. So you can really feel length in the left side of the torso, and then you'll swing back into the center of the pose. And then you'll go all the way over to the left side, and then you'll swing back into the center of the pose. And each time you swing back into the center, you should be able to bring your head in a little bit more deeply into the pose. Okay. So come into Prasarada Padottanasana first. And I immediately just felt, oh, a really wonderful feeling in my brain when I went into that pose. Like just the contents of my brain just drew a little bit more inward. But I also felt more alert, like that, because I was right on the top of my head, just like, oh, it's like I just had a little bit of extra coffee just from coming into that pose like that. Okay, now let's try and get a little deeper into the pose. So you're going to reach your hands either on bricks or on the floor. You can just reach your hands out again at that 2 o'clock kind of angle. And you'll really feel the length that comes in that side of the rib. And then swing yourself back to the center and see if you can bring your head, as a result of that, in a little bit more in line with your feet. You know, if you take a look at this pose in the book, Mr. Iyengar's back is actually kind of rounded, almost like a Kurmasana shape, and he's actually on the back of the head a little bit. And we tend to teach it more as like a headstand prep, but if you do look at the classic pose, it's got a rounded shape that isn't really anything like headstand. All right, now try the second side. And lengthen out over the left, over to the left, like you're working at 11 o'clock-ish. And I feel all this length coming on the right side of my body. It feels really, really wonderful. Then I maintain that length as much as I can as I bring my head in a little bit more. You have to engage your abdominal muscles also to get in a little bit deeper. And then in the last few seconds of the pose, go ahead and put your hands on your ankles and squeeze your ankles, lift up with the elbows, and you'll feel that your collarbones get nice and wide. Okay. Good. And then come back with your hands in the concave stage of the pose. Place your hands in your pelvic bones, roll your shoulder bones back, and come all the way up. And again, stand in Tadasana so you can feel the effect of that Prasarada Padottanasana with the Parsva work. I feel more vitality in the rib cage. more lift up into the armpits, more weight coming back into my heels, a little bit more drawing in of the abdomen. All right. I did want to give you another alternative for headstand for those of you who are not yet really doing headstand. And it is a pose that is called headless headstand prep. So you don't have any weight on the head, but you are learning the finger position for headstand, right? And the finger position for headstand is really just your fingers are interlaced like this, okay? And they go on the back of your head. Yeah. So that is one option too. You could actually just do upside down headstand. That's nice. And then you're also doing headstand and you're getting opening in the armpit. But I want to teach as another option that everyone can try, everyone can do. Yeah. You put your forearms down on the floor. Okay? Your elbows are about shoulder width apart, and you interlace your fingers and make like a cup shape with your fingers. Press the wrist down, and then your head is off the floor. Okay? And you just walk in with your feet a little bit, and you keep pressing the forearms down and lifting the shoulders up and taking that thoracic spine in. Okay? It's really hard work. Okay? So if you're choosing this option, you can do it, for a few seconds, and you may find, oh, you know what, I don't mind putting a little bit of my head on the floor. Okay? And you can actually lift up and down a couple of times. And just barely touch the floor with your head. Okay? So everyone try that. So interlace your finger, be on your hands and your knees, interlace your fingers, push your forearms down, walk in a little bit, and keep your head off the floor. Okay, so your head's just hanging. Okay. Press the forearms down and really lift the shoulders up and take that thoracic spine in. It's hard work. It is literally harder than headstand, but what you are trying to do here is build the muscles that you need to eventually one day do headstand safely. And you may feel like, oh, you know what, I could just lower down and put a tiny bit of weight on my head. And then could you lift yourself back up? So you're just coming up and down a couple times. Try not to let your thoracic spine move back quite so much, Marcia. But there you go, good. And you just try it a couple times. Sometimes if you stay so long, you're like, you know what, I'm actually dying to put my head on the floor. So that's another option. I would just say if you're not yet a headstand doer, that you can do just like 30 seconds of this even, or a minute of it. And then you'll go into one of the alternate poses, okay? All right, so you can have everyone come down and rest. People who do headstand already, you set up for your headstand. Okay? And if you're not doing headstand, and again, remember your options as a headstand replacement is you could repeat that headstand prep again. You could do headstand standing straight up. You could do Uttanasana, downward facing dog again, or Prasarita Padottanasana again. You can also cycle through those. Okay, so the idea is just to have a little bit more time with your head below your heart. All right, so do whatever you're gonna do when headstand rolls around. Yep, that looks good. Hallie. When you're in headstand, press your forearms down, lift your shoulders. Amelia, that looks right on the money. The legs look a lot, they're back further than usual, so that's good. I can't see all of you, sorry, so I'm not able to give all of you feedback, but press your forearms. Oh, that's a nice one, Ryan. There you go. Okay, regardless of whether I can see you or not, press your forearms down, lift your shoulders up. Bob, it looks a little bit like your legs are listing over to your right a little bit. Keep pressing the forearms down, keep lifting the shoulders up. You should feel some nice opening in your armpits. Turn your thighs in, or broaden the back of the thigh and lift your buttocks up toward your heels. Extend from your inner knee through your inner heel. How you know that you need to come down is if you really cannot keep your shoulders well lifted. You should actually come down before that point. Okay? So if you're sending signals to shoulders saying Press forearms down, lift shoulders up. And nothing happens in that lift of the shoulders. You're just at the limit of your current ability to do, and that means that you should come down. Okay. It's the shoulders crashing down that, generally speaking, gives people neck pain in this pose. Okay. More than the weight on the head. Okay. Then on the way down, it's also really important to keep the shoulders lifted. So on the way down, press your forearms down, make sure that your shoulders are well lifted, and then you're gonna come down out of the pose and rest in downward facing child's pose. I like to use a brick underneath my forehead after headstand in downward facing child's pose. It feels better on my own neck, and it feels very soothing on the brain. You can experiment with that yourself. You can also experiment with, do you want your arms out in front of you? Does it feel better with your arms out to the side, or does it feel better having your hands back behind you? All right, and then go ahead and come all the way up. And stand in Tadasana again. And just feel the effect of your Shirshasana work on your Tadasana. I didn't really do much of it except the prep, but what I am feeling in this moment is that my front brain has moved a little bit more toward my back brain, particularly right between the center of the forehead feels that way. Okay, instead of doing shared Vipada today, which is the 5th pose in the sequence, I wanted to give you another option there. And you will need a blanket. Actually, you need 2 blankets if you have them, or you can get by with 1 blanket and a brick, or pillows will work too. I saw that Ryan had a bunch of pillows for his head. But if you do have a yoga blanket or towel, I mean, this looks very much like a towel will work. But what you want to make is a roll. Yeah, towel would work just fine, particularly if you had one of those giant bath towels. That would be great. You just don't want it to be a super mushy blanket, so like a big poofy Afghan really wouldn't be good. You want it to have a little bit of firmness. You know, you could also even roll your sticky mat. If you have one of the sticky mats that rolls nicely, like one of the kind of classic ones that are thinner, would work better. Okay. All right, then I'm gonna have my 2 bricks. So they're optional in a certain way. I'll show you what I'm gonna do. And then I have a pillow or a blanket support for my head. Okay. So we're basically doing a supported version of Supta Baddha Konasana. Okay. And what I'm doing here is I'm gonna lie down and I'm putting the blanket roll horizontally, and it's up pretty near my armpits. Not quite at my armpits, but pretty near. And I have my knees bent right now, and I can support my head. And already I can just say, you know, this feels fantastic. I really like the opening in the back body and the spread of the chest. It all feels wonderful. You can keep your knees bent. You can straighten your legs out. Another thing that is very good in a lot of emotional stability work is also you can put your legs in Baddha Konasana. I have my outer hips supported with my bricks just because they're nearby, but that is also optional. But Supta Baddha Konasana is a really nice choice because you can feel the width that comes into the pelvic region and the opening that comes into the chest and the drawing in of the abdomen. And this is a very soothing pose that has a lot of similarities with the shared Vipada work, because you're getting this nice opening of the chest, but you don't have to have a yoga chair to do that. All right, so do some form of Supta Baddha Konasana if that's okay on your legs. Or you can have your legs out straight. You're welcome to support your outer hips. Yeah, Marcia is actually changing to vertical support, which is fine. Okay. Both are good. Okay, so this is instead of the chaired vipada that's in the sequence of the immunity sequence. It's interesting when you look at the emotional stability sequence as opposed to the immunity sequence. The main thing that is different in the emotional stability sequence is the Baddha Konasana. There's your legs are in Baddha Konasana and Shirshasana, and there's Baddha Konasana in it. Okay? So I think that position of the legs, what I intuit from that is it gives you a lot of opening and release in the groin, which helps your emotional and mental state feel more relaxed. Okay. You can also, work with pranayama in this particular position if you're working on a pranayama practice. Okay, then place your hands on the outside of your knees, come all the way up, and just like we've been doing, go ahead and come and stand back into Tadasana again to give yourself the opportunity to feel the effect of that Supta Baddha Konasana. I didn't do it as long as you did, but I did do it for a little while. And what I'm feeling is, even though that pose works on width, I'm feeling more length and openness in my front groin. I also feel that my legs are more firmly drawn together. And I also feel my shoulder blades a little bit more on my back, which gives me a little bit more lift in the chest. Okay, so now we're working on the shoulder stand kind of end of class situation. All right. And what we're going to do instead, what we're going to do instead of shoulder stand is everyone is going to do a brick Satya and then we're going to all do legs up the wall pose in the interest of time. Okay. All right. Because that particular pose took a little bit more time than I was anticipating. All right. So brick Satya is similar to Chatushpadasana, except you have a brick underneath your sacrum. So you have to lay down on the floor, lift up on your toes. I like the brick horizontal, but you can also put the brick vertically. If the brick is too tall, you can also have it on its lower height. If you're very tall, you might even need a taller brick. And that's the idea, is I put my sacrum on the brick, and I try and work my legs together too, okay? As the legs are together in shoulder stand. When you bring the legs together, it gives you more firmness in your outer hips. Tuck your shoulders underneath you, and you'll feel that work your shoulder blade actions here too. And then you'll feel that your chin is coming to your chest, and there's also a nice feeling of the back of the neck releasing. This is brick Satyabandha, and it very much in the head. The position of the head feels very similar to shoulder stand. You can also, in this pose, lift one leg up and work on the leg inversion. Bring that leg down. You can bring the other leg up. And some people even find that they can actually do a version of Viparita Karani here, where both legs are lifted up. I don't personally like that one as much. I like to do one leg at a time. But me personally, in my own practice, I really have been trying to work on this pose, getting the legs as close together as possible. If that hurts your back, don't do it. All right, and then lower yourself all the way down. I won't make you stand up again. Well, actually, you might need to move to your wall, but I'm feeling as I'm laying here, I am feeling that my front brain has gotten even more soothed just from that movement of a little bit of Satyabandha. All right, then everyone go into, if you have wall space, go ahead and go into legs up the wall pose. And you can do that just flat on the floor with your legs up the wall, or if you happen to have a bolster or some blankets you can roll together, you can do that too. Okay? They're both great poses. when your legs are elevated, or when your buttocks are elevated, you get a little bit more release of the abdomen, which is nice. It's a form of Uddiyana Bandha. You also have a little bit more opening in the chest and a little bit more of the Jalandhara Bandha feeling of the chin. And so it works more on an organic internal level. If you have an eye pillow or a strap, you can also put that over your eyes. It's also very soothing. But just doing it flat on the floor is also great. And it's particularly good if you have lower back pain. It's in a lot of lower back sequences. We've got 3 minutes left in class, so if you want to stay here for the last 3 minutes, you're welcome to do so. If you would like to end class in a classic Shavasana of your choice, now is the time to make that transition. You could also experiment with prone Shavasana, where you lay face down on the floor and put a little blanket underneath your forehead so your nose doesn't get mashed. I've seen that going around the internet of what they're doing with some of people suffering from COVID. And it helps clear the lungs. But whatever you're chosen, let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. Patanjali defines yoga as the practice of stilling the fluctuations of the mind. He then says, when that happens, we come to dwell in the space of your own true splendor. Be in that space. Abide there. Now, from that seat of your true self, from the space of your own true splendor, inhale. Consciously use your inhalations to bring that awareness of your true self with you as you go about your work in the world. Place your hands on your rib cage. If you're still in legs up the wall pose, you'll have to push yourself away from the wall. Bend your knees and roll over to your right side. Use your hands to push yourself back up. Sit up straight and tall. Close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. Observe the effect that your practice has on you. Observe it on every layer of your being, from the physical to the most deeply spiritual. In gratitude to the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga, in gratitude to the people of the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with, and in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, is practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India and down through a line of teachers and students to you, here on the mat in Austin, Texas, or wherever you happen to be in the world. Namaste. All right, I'm gonna unmute everyone so you can say goodbye.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was great.
Great.
Good, I'm glad y'all liked it.
I appreciate all the extra instruction. It's going to help me a lot in my
Yeah.
daily.
Good, I'm glad. Good. Feel free to ask questions, everyone.
For those immunity sequences, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I'm sorry. The strap on the hips, and thank you so much. I forgot about it. I used to do it.
Yeah.
And it really indicated when I was shifting weight too much on one leg or the other. So it really helped me a lot.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, Ryan?
For those immunity sequences, just to confirm for practicing them, for the first and third ones, you're putting your top of your head on
Yep.
whatever it is, and then for the downward dog, it's your forehead.
Correct.
And then for the time, you said about anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes to start, and then build up to 5.
Yeah. Yes. But, I mean, that building up, it can take a while to build up. I mean, that's like a maybe 2 or 3 year project to get to 5 minutes. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Monica.
Bye.
Hey,
Take
Bob.
care.
You too.
Thank you, Anne.
You're
Take care.
welcome.
This is great.
Fatima.